Shane is a certified surveying and engineering technician for Lawson Fisher and Associates PC with 26 years of experience specializing in all manners of measurements and data collection. Shane has spearheaded Lawson Fisher's growth in the northern Indiana surveying market over the past 2 decades and is largely responsible for Lawson Fisher's ability to capture a wide variety of data, process it efficiently, and produce an effective survey deliverable, no matter what the given situation demands. Shane is a member of ISPLS, NSPS, and is a OSHA 10 certified, confined space certified, as well as trench and evacuation in the United States. He's a patent inventor, which I gotta know more about that one. Carries certification from the National Institute of Certification in Engineering Technologies and is a NSPS Level 3 CST since 2007 and has been certified Geographic Information System professional since 2008. Shane and his wife Samantha have 4 kids, a grandson, and a German Shepherd. So we already like him already. And he hails from Buckingham, Michigan. Close?
That's really close. That's
All right.
really close. Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome. Thanks for being on here tonight, Shane. But real quick before you jump in your thing, what's a patent inventor? What'd you invent?
So I invented a tool that aids in sewer inspections.
All right. Got it.
So yeah, we can talk about that some other day, maybe.
Got it. That's
So
awesome.
thank you. And thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you to everyone for being here. Like Trent said, I'm in Michigan, work out of South Bend, Indiana for many years. And I think what I hope to bring to this is just some of the experience that I've had. And we'll just share some of my thoughts and opinions on these things. And tonight we're going to talk about this idea of basic training. So there's a lot of things we could discuss, but we're going to try to just focus on getting someone newer and that maybe has even no experience or very limited experience, getting them up to speed, maybe as efficiently as we can and as safe as we can. And then depending on the time and how things are working out, we can also talk about some longer range goals for training. If this is someone you know or plan to be working with for an extended period of time. And then also how some of these training concepts can maybe spill over into working with engineers or your clients as well. When I set this up, I was hoping I was told this was more of a discussion. I am new here. I'm sure most of you don't know me, don't recognize me. But please feel free to speak up if you have any questions or comments as we move through. And we'll be happy to discuss anything in line with this idea of kind of basic training and getting people started. So the goal in this, in my mind, is going to be outlining some thoughts to help have a smooth out this process of building your team or getting someone on board, and some suggestions for that. And just so you know, a lot of my background in this has been working with student interns, with college interns over the summer months, which I have done my entire time at Lawson Fisher, which has been over 20 years. And so every season, every busy season, we usually will have students coming in that have anywhere from no experience to a little bit of experience. And then also the other people that we work with that are the long timers, so to speak. So my first part, while I will start, is my opinion or some of my thoughts and things that I have learned on what it means to kind of be a good teacher for someone. And I realize there's so many different circumstances that we're all in. Nobody is the same. It's probably one of my big lessons that I've learned, and that people learn differently. So I have found, for me personally, probably one of my number one suggestions or thoughts on being a good trainer or teacher is being someone who is a good learner. Because I feel like from everyone that I've come across, no matter what their experience was, has provided something to me that I have been able to learn from, whether it was learning a new way of describing something or explaining something in a different way that made sense to that person. I always found that taking a moment to figure out what you can learn from this person, and that will help you be a better trainer for them and hopefully get you on the same page. Because in my mind, what this is all about, or what it boils down to, I think, is communication. And we hear it a lot from people. I've listened to some recent episodes of Mentoring Mondays, and you hear a lot about the efforts that people are putting into communicating, some of the frustrations that come from a lack of communication. And so I think that tip about being a good learner and a good listener to the people that you're interacting with will help you to be a good communicator. I've also found it helpful to not assume what a person can or cannot do. I usually give them a chance to try just about everything within reason and see how it works out. I try not to size a person up too quickly, just because I've been wrong, I think, so many times. Or people often surprise me with, with their abilities or what they're good at. And nobody's good at everything. This is at least my experience in life. Everybody has their strengths, and then everybody kind of has their weaknesses. So recognizing that and kind of working with that person, listening to them is a good way, I think, to do that. When you're working with someone new, you've got to develop a rapport with them and get to know them. I think it's the same thing people have always said, just being humble, being yourself, being authentic is a good way to do that. And just kind of put them at ease as much as you can. And like I said, and often a short amount of time that you have to get people kind of going and together. And we'll kind of get into some details of that a little bit later, at least some things that we have implemented that have worked for us. And we too want to hear from you guys. So please be thinking about your own experiences with this, or any protocols or procedures that you have that have worked well for you, and we'll want to hear those. I think too, it's important to take risk with people and give them some trust. So when I say take risk, I mean allowing them room to accomplish the things that you need them to accomplish, and see how it works out. It does not always work out, but it's kind of hard to know until it's tried. And what I'm talking about right now, again, is geared more towards that. You have someone coming in, you don't know this person, you don't really know what they can do in a practical sense, and you don't have a lot of time to figure it out. So we're always pretty aggressive in giving people a lot and seeing how it kind of works out. I think it's kind of key to getting things moving in an accelerated fashion. Which it's a lot that we hear from people as far as, having a hard time getting people, or maybe not being able to get the people that you would like to have. We all have to kind of work with what we have personally, but then also as what we get as a team. A lot of times we might not get to pick, but we still have to make the best of it. Another tip that I have that I think is good is to try and teach principles over rules. So there's a little more details to this, though, because I think principles are far superior to rules, but a person has to have a knowledge base to be able to apply those principles effectively. So if a person is starting out and they have very little to no experience, you obviously cannot lay a bunch of principles on them. They will need more of some of the rules and procedures. And I've heard talk about that through the Mentoring Mondays. And I think that is very important, having those things set up. But I always have kind of in the back of my mind the idea that you want to move away from that as soon as you can and work more towards more concepts and principles to help people develop the tools to make their own thoughtful decisions, and not going by a checklist all the time, because I have found that that can kind of be handicapping for the types of surveys that we do. And I probably should have told you that the type of surveys that I'm most familiar with are topographic, civil engineering, control, hydrographic type surveys. So that's kind of the framework or the mindset that I'm coming from. And in that world, like every other discipline, really, as you know, nothing is never quite the same on a job. There's a lot of things that vary. So again, I think that's where having this thoughtfulness towards principles applies over rules, when it's appropriate and when it can be done. Because rules are very good, but they lack, I think, that flexibility that is important when you're out in the field, and the people in the office that requested the work, or your client, often, they don't know about the details of the site, and they don't know about the discoveries that you're making that might affect what is happening there. And so it allows you a lot of more flexibility if you can focus your thoughts in that direction, if time allows for it and you have a little time with this person. And then I think it's important to let the people know that that they are important to the operation, and that they have as much information as they're ready to receive about what they're doing. So what I mean by that is, obviously, if a person's new, just figuring out what you call things in a vehicle can be a lot for the time that you're, out for your first few days. So you kind of have to temper this. But I think you want to focus on, when you can, kind of the big picture, help explain why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important. And again, encouraging thought about what's happening out in the field is going to make for a lot more flexibility, and letting them know that they are a very important part of that. I mean, if they're out in the field and working with you or for you, I mean, that's a huge plus right there. You found somebody that agreed to go out and spend some time with you in the field doing this job together. So I think they should know. They should know that and be aware of that. It doesn't mean you have to be nice to them all the time, but they should know somewhere in there you care about them. Okay, so that's kind of some general thoughts that I had about getting someone moved in. I think from here, we're going to go into a few more details. So we can pause, though, for a moment. If anybody has any thoughts or comments, we'll take a second and give anybody a chance if they want to say something or an experience.
I got a question to ask you.
Mhm.
So when you're bringing somebody new on board, do you have any kind of expected time frame? Or do you kind of figure that out? Is it just based on whoever's coming in, their experience level? I'm just trying to get an idea of, when you bring someone new in, how you kind of judge that.
Sure. Thank you, Danny. So usually my first step, so you get somebody, somebody comes in there, you've never seen this person before. You got to get to know them a little bit. And I think you need to do a little, at least sit down and talk so that you can gauge what their level of awareness is, or what their past experiences are. So in my mind, that's always the first step, is to, where you're from, what jobs have you had in the past. And in my experience working with student interns in a busy season, that just varies wildly. Some have never, I've had young people that I didn't think it was possible, but didn't know how to use a shovel. I mean, I would think that was a joke if I hadn't seen it myself. To somebody that maybe had an internship somewhere else before and knew something about surveying. So I try to get some sense of where they're at. But still, again, the proof's in the pudding. When you get out in the field, Danny, you probably know, you can watch somebody for, I don't know, a few minutes, a couple minutes of observation, and can have a sense of what is, how tense are they? Are they really nervous? Are they not? And I don't know, you kind of get a sense for where a person is at, or they're maybe just super confident, but still don't know anything. So, I mean, you just get a wide variety. And I think that kind of goes back to before, like, as a person, let's say we're talking to people who are going to be out guiding someone at some point. That's just that you have to kind of figure that out and just take a moment to have some interest in that person. And then in my mind, it pretty quickly becomes apparent what direction you kind of need to go with this person. And it's just unfortunate. Well, no, I don't know. It's not the same. That's probably a good thing that it's not the same. It's always going to be something a little bit different in my experience and opinion. Now, as far as time frame, so I don't think I've really answered this very well. There's so many things. It depends on, am I going to have this person for a week? Will I have this person for 3 months? We try to kind of, if we get, let's say, well, back in the day, we would maybe have 3 or 4 interns come in. And typically you work with them a bit, and someone will usually be more inclined towards what you're doing. Like they'll just be a better fit, whether it's just, I don't know, physical ability or aptitude for what they're doing. So we'll try to work with that person as much as we can so that we're limiting the amount of training that we're having to do. Because, as soon as you spend a day with a person, I mean, you're making investments in this person. And so it just depends on a lot of things. So again, it just kind of goes back to pulling back a little bit, I think, looking at the big picture. How much time do I have this person for? What do we need to get done? And then you kind of take it from there, because you might decide if it's a real short-term thing, you're going to keep them real close to you and just have them helping out in very not ultra independent at all. They're just going to be right with you doing basic things, go do this, get this for me, please, do it now. You're going to be just real simple things like that. So yeah. I don't know. I just don't know if there's a real great, like a lot of things, it depends. That's one of the things that's interesting to me about this profession, is there's a lot of judgment, I feel like, that needs to be used. And it's part of what makes it kind of exciting. So does that help at all?
Yeah, it gives me a good idea. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome.
Danny, I'll say from like my experience, we always, if we hire someone new, I'll put them as a 3-man crew, and bounce them around for the first 3+ months at least. I mean, he's never going to go out with a chief until, 3-4 months down the road type of thing, until he's at least able to ride on the lath or tie the lath or something, on his own type of thing. So I would say you're at least to give him at least a chance, at least plan for 3-4 months before you can really send him out as a 2-man crew and not send him to the wolves, I think.
Sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
We had a 3-man crew at my last job over this summer. Third man was he was an intern, and my goal, well, the party chiefs and mine, our goal was to get him to a point where he could be independent. And at the end of his tenure with us, he was independent. Wound up landing a really good job at another firm in town.
Nice. That's cool.
Hey, don't want to train him too good, and they.
Well, he wound up leaving because the company didn't keep him. They just had him just as an intern, and that was just a whole nother thing.
Let a good one go. That's not good.
Did.
That's not good.
You can't train them too good. That's the first tip. No, that's not true at all. So anyway, okay, is there any other comments or thoughts that people want to have right now?
I think we're good.
Hey, Shane, this is Rob McMillan.
Ah, there you
Hi,
go.
Rob.
After just retiring from 30 years with California Department of Transportation, I'd have to agree with you. And just letting somebody know that it's a safe environment to say, hey, have you done this before? It's okay if you haven't. And if you have, show me what you know, because we might do it different. We might have a different way of doing things.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob, and congratulations. And thank you for all your service. I agree. And again, it gets back to that. Everybody's going to be different, I think, and just gauging that, and because there's so many different circumstances and different crew sizes for firms and all of that stuff that goes into this. So, this is to be adapted in a lot of different ways. And again, too, I'm kind of trying to focus on this, trying to get somebody up in a very basic way as quick as possible, because obviously, if you have somebody that you intend to for the long haul, there will be some things that you would modify here for this if you have the luxury of some more time. So there's a few other things, I think before this person even sets foot in the field, and obviously we should talk about safety before anything happens at all. So again, same kind of ideas. You want to get a sense of, has this person, have experience outdoors? What are you sensing from them? Like Rob had said, you want them to feel comfortable. You don't want them to be feeling anxious, because people who are uncomfortable and anxious tend to make more mistakes, probably, which when you're working around traffic or open manholes and the like, you certainly don't want somebody who is all worked up, and you want to keep them as comfortable as possible. And then I know a lot of companies, if we have somebody coming on for the long term, we have all kinds of safety programs that they go through and things like that. But with shorter term help, you don't have a lot of those luxuries, but you still need to address these things. Again, letting them know that their safety is very important to you, and reassuring them that it is good to speak up if there's anything that's not clear to them, that they don't understand, and especially if they feel like something's not right, because we all make mistakes, and when you're in the field is the time to fix the problems. If something went by and you felt like it was wrong and it wasn't addressed in the field, then resolving that in the office is usually going to be much more difficult, because you won't have the freedom to make whatever additional observations you might need to make, or double check a measurement or something. So we always reinforce that if something is not feeling right, if you think something was done incorrectly, please speak up. And then when they do, again, listen, take some deep breaths, and just address the situation, as it comes up. If they're not feeling safe at all, they need to speak up, because my tolerance for risk, or even my concept of what is risky and what is not risky, does not translate to other people. And I assume that's the same for all of us. Just because maybe you have been out and you have the whole interstate traffic thing doesn't hardly faze you. You've kind of numb to it, which is probably not great. But there's just all different levels of comfort when it comes to taking on risk. And I don't think you should ever project your feelings regarding safety to another person. So I think it's important that they know that they can speak up, and then if there's something they don't feel comfortable doing, that they have the freedom to tap out, so to speak, and be okay with that, and other arrangements can be made. Because you really, man, you just do not want somebody in your care, being harmed in any way, obviously. So we don't ever pressure them to do that. I'm looking at my notes here a minute. I think it's good too to help people if somebody hasn't worked in the field much. I can't imagine not working in the field, but it's new to a lot of people. So I think addressing things like the just food and water and restrooms, the cold or the heat, and just how you kind of do that, and whether it's just letting them know they just have to speak up, or we're going to pack today, or it's cold out and we're going to eat breakfast before we get started in the field, or whatever kind of the arrangement is that you have, that you work in your crew. I think letting them know ahead of time, we have sanitation wipes for cleaning up any messes that you make, out here, or any trouble you get into or whatever. We got paper towels, we've got this and this, whatever you kind of have. We go to lunch at this time, for this long, or you have to pack your lunch. Sometimes you're going places where there is no, nothing to eat. So you got to shoot something or bring some food with you or something. So letting people know those things ahead of time, I think will help maybe alleviate some anxiety for some. I think be really clear about what you expect regarding like phone use or their apparel, what you would like them to wear for whatever it is that you're doing, or your things about that. I think letting them know and being very frank up front, of course, is going to help alleviate a lot of that. So this comes into this point I have about anticipating. So when you work with someone new, and as you do it more, you really learn that you have to anticipate as much as you can what might come up, and try to mitigate that for everybody's kind of safety or well-being. So if you're a person that is going out with somebody for kind of the first time, I think giving some thought to it, putting yourself in their headspace, and thinking, what might be a concern to this person, and trying to address as many of those things as you can within reason, and kind of get that out of the way. But I mean, you typically have the same, handful of things that you just kind of have to get out of the way, and that's pretty much safety, how you're going to feed and water yourself, and then what you kind of expect of them as far as some of these other details. And two, you recognize it doesn't always work out. It's not always going to work out. I would say 98% of the time, even if it's somebody that just knows nothing, I think you can make it work. But you will occasionally have a person that is either creating a safety risk by their lack of awareness or something. And I think you should not feel too bad about politely saying that it's just not going to work out. Thank you. We've tried this for a couple of days, and you can even let them know not why, but it doesn't always work out. And you got to keep the safety as a whole of your crew or whatever you're doing, has to be high. So if it doesn't work out, it happens sometimes. I wouldn't feel too bad about it. You just kind of move on. Okay, so again, this just all comes down to, in my mind, communicating. So far, these have all just been things you're going to do with this person. We've talked about it quite a bit, but I mean, most of this stuff is going to happen within minutes of meeting this person. It doesn't have to be an interview that you're going to sit down. It can be driving in your truck on the way, some of these items and whatnot. So most of this stuff will happen like pretty quickly. Okay, so more on safety. So we realize, right, every site's different and unique. We realize that these new people that have been kind enough to work with us, their level of awareness is going to vary wildly. So you really have got to keep a close watch over this person until you start getting a sense of how well they're going to operate out in the field. And I just don't think there's any substitute for that. So it's good when you get to a site, you can mention things, hey, if we're working along the road, for this site, we're going to be on this side of the road and we're going to work, this way or something. And you can explain some of your thoughts about each site and let them know. But, and I will speak too, if you happen to be the newer person on the crew and you're listening today, no one else can look out for you like you can. And I try to tell people this, I will try to look out for you as much as I can. But as the day goes on, we will be doing activities, and you have got to look out, for your own safety. never assume that someone else is doing it, or that someone else is going to tell you to look, or whatever it is, or not step in this certain spot. So I try to make it really clear to them, we're all going to look out for each other as much as we can, but it is ultimately your responsibility to be careful, to take your time, to not get in too big of a hurry, and stay safe, while we're out there. And two, weather, if people are not used to working out in the weather here in Southwest Michigan, I don't know, it's around 10 degrees. And things get very tricky this time of year in what we can do. It typically slows down for us because of the snow cover and the very cold temperatures, but it's the same with the heat. If people don't know, you need to encourage them about just the drinking the water or wearing the proper clothing, whether it's lightweight clothing or whether it's insulated clothing for the cold weather. These are some things people just don't know about if they haven't worked in the field before. Take care of your feet and your boots, very important. Talk to them about what to expect when it comes to encountering people. So that we run across a lot of very nice, very interesting people in the field. And you want them to reflect well upon your organization, and it not, we not divulge too much information at times so we don't unnecessarily work people up. So those are some good things to cover with somebody that's new. Reminding them about things like overhead wires, if you're around a construction site, just tips for working out stuff like that. So that's kind of most of my stuff on safety. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss about safety or experiences or anything?
Sean had put in the chat, which is really important. It's important to remember new employees may have not ever stepped foot in the field before and can be intimidated by working alongside the highway or unfamiliar places. So they may also attempt unsafe work because they don't know any better. So yeah, those are huge points, Sean. And then Rodney, we had a good long safety topic a couple weeks ago as well. So it's in the forefront for sure. It's one of the most important things. And then you talked about boots. One of the things that we do, I provide the guys with gift cards to like Boot Barn and that kind of stuff, so that they buy decent boots instead of $30, $40 boots or whatever, because your feet are the most important thing when you're out in the field. So taking care of your feet and having good work boots and that kind of stuff. So I make sure I give them gift cards so that they have to go buy decent boots. So
good stuff. How many Danner boot people do we have here?
Right.
Huh?
I would imagine a lot.
Okay. Let's see here. So yeah, in a nutshell, you really have to watch, you watch out for these newer people. You just have to, like Sean said, because they'll do things that they don't know. And then, telling them about things like the poisonous plant, poison ivy, things like that, cactus, or whatever it happens to be that bites you when you're in the field. It's nice if you know some of that. And then people need reminders, I think too, especially with the safety, really anything, but with safety, people need reminders because people got a lot going on. Things are busy. Like we said, every site's different. So you want to make sure you're not neglecting that. Just because you told somebody once doesn't mean, you don't have to hound them, but these should be things that you're discussing and you don't just let slip by the wayside if possible. Okay, so you have, okay.
I'm speaking up here.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one safety manager that had a presentation in front of me and was talking to me about it. And he asked the whole class, how do you know how to stand on a 5-gallon bucket to reach what you're doing? And everybody's in the class is like, oh, and that's when he expressed it. The only reason that you know how to stand on a 5-gallon bucket to reach something that is because nobody taught you that. We don't do that, we'll go get a ladder. But as a supervisor or anybody that's around training, when you do that, and you might not recognize it, you're teaching the next generation to stand on a 5-gallon bucket. And how I learned how to do that when I was relating this was, yeah, I saw my dad take a 5-gallon bucket and stand on top of it to reach something. And the ladder was 5 feet away. So it's kind of important for, you don't even sometimes recognize that you're teaching somebody, instructing them, because they're looking at you as the example. And what you're doing is not a good idea.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's
The o-
a good
I
point.
think the only thing my kids have seen me do with the 5-gallon bucket is scoop ice cream out of it, I think, but now I got another use for it. Okay. So we have somebody new, and it is it's not a burden for you. So as say the more experienced person, it's not a burden for you, but it does take your resources to get this going. And especially, it's very heavy, so ideally it tapers off. And when we're trying to get there as soon as we can, but it is taking additional effort on your part, and we realize that the quality can never be sacrificed. So just because somebody out there is lacks experience or has not done this, you cannot let the quality of the operation be sacrificed, right? Because if it's not correct at the end of the day, then everybody has problems. It's not going to work out for anybody. So you've got to do some things to take care of this and address this. So again, I think providing some of the big picture information is hopefully helpful, and maybe will be not as much benefit at first, but hopefully in a little bit of time, if a person knows why they're doing what they're doing, it might help them put the pieces together and make some of their own judgments. And you want to try to do that, as quickly as you can, especially if this is someone you only have for a little bit. And again, you've reinforced the ideas that it's okay to speak up, and things will just get handled in a nice way, if possible. So you just have to look for, I don't know, expect the unexpected, I guess, is what I would say, because it sounds silly, but I mean, things happen that you just cannot make up or anticipate when you're working with somebody that does not have experience or is just not familiar with surveying at all. Because when you are working with someone who's experienced, so many things go unsaid. I feel like, your partner will just be you'll talk about something, then they will just go start doing things, you doing things. It's all working very nicely because you've worked together, you know each other. But when you are bringing someone on and trying to get them up in a basic way, there's just so many things that happen that are unsaid. And so again, anticipating this, kind of plan for it, accept the fact that your efficiency is going to go down for at least a period of time until you can iron out some of these wrinkles and get some type of flow going. And again, this is different for everybody, because this person might never leave your side, or they might be getting out more on their own. But regardless, you still have to be prepared and aware that just strange stuff is going to happen, and you have to be really paying very close attention to that. And I'll call back to some other episodes through Mentor Mondays, doing the checks, communicating. I mean, it just really is what it comes down to. So making sure that you're understanding the other person, they're understanding you. You might ask them to explain what they're going to do. Let's say you talked about some things with some people. You had a group or a crew that's working on this site. Maybe it's 3 or 4 people. You assign them something to do. You might ask them to give it back to you, or, okay, can you explain to me what exactly you're going to do and what you're going to be looking for? And that might help you gauge where this person's at. Are they picking up what I'm laying down? Is this working? Are we melding here, or is it just kind of falling flat? So that's a strategy that sometimes can work to help make sure you're on the same page, is asking them to explain, what they'll be doing and why they're doing it, perhaps. And then again, I say be aggressive when it comes to adding new responsibilities. I know when I started, I was quite young, I will say, but I don't think I was allowed to touch the gun, which was not even a total station. I don't know, it was like a year and a half, I think, before I was even offered the opportunity to set up an instrument. And that might be common for a lot of larger crews and old school stuff. But once I did it, I thought, well, I feel like I could have been doing this, a few weeks in, I could have been at least starting this and working with this. So, and again, usually you don't have a lot of time these days. You don't have a lot of time to let a lot of this cultivate organically, I suppose. You got to maybe hit it with some fertilizer, I guess, in a balanced way. So I tend to be aggressive when it comes to adding new responsibilities, kind of a sink or swim to a degree. And, sinking's okay a little bit, but as long as nobody's drowning. So obviously there's a balance. You're not going to, throw a lot of stuff on them, but I would say test the waters as much as you can and give them a chance. And then again, I think not doing well, or maybe not doing something right. I mean, that's a good trainer right there. So if you give them something, maybe not too big, but they try it and it works out great. If it doesn't work out, great. Hopefully something will have been learned from that and they'll take it away. But I think in order to get somebody going quickly, you've got to be pretty aggressive in what you're asking them to do, and then give them as much guidance as you can, or evaluate it after the fact. I liked this about what you did, or, I didn't like it for these reasons. Thank you for trying anyway. And then, get them involved in the thought process as soon as they're ready. So if they have thoughts, you can always ask them, here's what I'm thinking. Do you have any thoughts about this? They might not, but somebody might have some thoughts about it. And, it doesn't hurt to take a moment and just listen, and then just be like, that's silly. We're not doing that. Okay. So now, a few comments probably on some technical kind of field methods. And we're getting close to our 50-minute mark. So we'll kind of go through these and then look for comments from you guys. So if you have any thoughts on this. So here's our go-to methods when it comes to trying to get somebody incorporated into our operations kind of as quickly as possible that makes sense for everybody. Is we call it like team topo, but this really in my mind applies to everything. And I think it's in line with some of the comments I've already heard. So it's nice these days with the robots and with the GPS. Once things are set up and rolling on a site, we will just work side by side with somebody. So, and we will typically try to start them on the controller. So we will set them up with the controller, and then have the more experienced person actually deciding what gets shot and how and all that good stuff. And you're going to introduce this person to, the software user interface that you use, how your coding system works, all of these just myriads of details that you're going to have to try to start conveying to this person. And so the thought is here, you're keeping them right by you, but you're kind of throwing them right in the mix. And most younger people do really well with the software. They're very used to interacting with the different menus and screens and this whole concept. It makes a lot of sense to them, especially now with, I know a lot of the controllers are more of like a Windows based. And so it's a very familiar format, at least for a lot of people. So you'll be right there with them and they can be doing the codes for you. You can keep an eye on them. So from a safety perspective, it works pretty well. From just a training perspective, you're still doing things. You're progressing the job. You're shooting your control or your irons or your topography, whatever it is you need to do. You're still moving towards doing that and getting it accomplished, but keeping that person right there with you, getting them used to your codes, how you're doing things. You talk to them kind of as you go. Then the next step we will usually do once we've had a person for a while. And again, when I say a while, it could be a couple days. It might take longer. It depends on what you're doing. But as soon as we can, we'll then move them to like If we're doing topography, again, this is my background, and I assume it would apply to others, but we'll have them locate features that are symbols only. So we don't introduce the line work concepts and stuff. We say, okay, now that we've gone through these menus, this is what we're looking for as far as quality goes and all these things. These are the codes. We're going to set you up and have you do, going to locate power poles or whatever it is, water valves, basic symbology only stuff. But this is introducing the working autonomously, kind of getting them on their own just a little bit, but not too far away. And then from there, the next step we'll usually take is have them start with basic lines. And sometimes you need to break it up. Sometimes you can tell one person, hey, we need everything that's a symbol over here. And let me give you an example. And they say, okay, I got it. And they go. Other times it might be like, we just need to do one. We just got to do one symbol. We're just going to shoot fire hydrants, whatever it is. So you're obviously, that's not super efficient, but the idea is you're trying to get them in the water, get them a little comfortable, get them confidence built up, get them doing something on their own a little bit. From there, then we would look for basic, what I would call like non-surface entities. If your utilities fall into that category, you've had a lot of water line locates or something, then you get them started with those basic lines that are just stopping and starting and stopping. There's usually not curves associated with that generally. So that will be the general kind of practical field method that we will use. So we do this kind of teamwork thing. And then when we feel like we've kind of established a bit of a base, then we try to introduce these different styles to get them kind of working on their own as much as they can. And when I say on their own, I mean, someone is out there with them and they're on their own, 100 feet away. We're not sending anybody out on their own completely. And then two, as much as they can see in the office side, because again, if somebody's out there and you're asking them to do these things, but they don't have any concept really of where it's going or what's going to happen with it. So again, we're not talking a lot of time. This could just be, okay, we went out and did this survey together. Let me show you. It goes here. We're going to do this to it. And then it goes into this drawing. This is what's happening with this. So at least they're starting to get a concept of that even what we're doing, there's a much bigger world that goes into this. That's very important as well. So I think that's important for people to get kind of that bigger picture. So that's some of my comments about some practical procedures that we do when working with a very new person in the field. Does anybody have some experiences of their own or comments about this?
I'll have one quick comment. I've always had the philosophy, if you're working with somebody less experienced or somebody brand new, I always had the philosophy, if the office is telling the field people to push them, throw as much as you can at them, I kind of take that as the idea of you're tossing them overboard and they're going to either sink or swim, but you should always have a life raft to hand them in case they're really screwing up. You can tell them, hey, you did good here, but you did bad here. Don't do this again. You're doing okay here. Having that feedback really helps. And I've noticed off and on in my career that I didn't always get that. I wouldn't get any feedback. So half the time I wouldn't know if I was screwing the pooch or if I was doing a good job until maybe a year in, you get your review and then they give you the big list of what you did good and what you didn't do good. And at that point, it's kind of like, well, okay, I have all these habits and now I got to break these habits. Well, okay. It's that's my mileage, and everybody else's mileage could vary, but more often than not, that tend to happen in my career. And as my career progressed and I was able to try and help mentor people in my own way, I always told them, hey, we got to get this done. I'll push you as much as I can, but I promise you I won't let you drown. I'll throw you a life raft. And whether you listen to me or not, that's up to you, but I'll try and help you that way.
Thank you, Danny. I think that's really good advice. And I completely agree. A lot of what I've talked about here, in my mind at least, has been towards this intern, kind of getting people up going quickly. But I completely agree that if you have a person that you're wanting to cultivate and bring along, then yes, you should be investing some time. I mean, there's no way around it. If you want to bring somebody up, it's just going to take some time. It's going to take your time with them, reviewing what's been done, and maybe even keeping notes of it that they can have for review. So it can even be, if it's something you see in post-process, you can take a screen snip, and we have a little document that I will use that just kind of lists the job and what the scenario was, and maybe what worked good, and then what we don't want to repeat. And then it's kind of a little, that person can kind of start a little collection of tips or training, if you will, for them. And then hopefully too, some of those efforts might translate. Once you kind of see things written out, you might, as a more experienced person, start getting a better picture of, hey, a lot of people are stumbling in this particular scenario or with this particular effort. Maybe I need to do a better job in getting people in line with what we're trying to do in this particular way. So I think that's a really good suggestion Danny has, especially for those people that are going to be with you, or you hope are going to be with you, working out your own program of communicating to them in some way that's meaningful and that's encouraging to help bring them up.
Shane.
Hello?
Steve Parrish here in Reno.
Hello, Mr. Steve.
I've had a lot of experience in both government surveying, Forest Service, BLM, and private. And I found some rather significant differences in some of the people we try to train when you try to get them up at 10,000 feet up into the mountainous areas on steeples and stuff like that, and then goes down in the city. And to get a good mix of somebody that can do both, you've got to jam them there. In your experience of 20 years and where you're at in that part of the country, what are some comments you would have concerning the training or the exposure to people you've worked with when they're in a out of town, no commercial, no homes or anything area versus being down in the city, or even versus being in a subdivision? We all deal with evidence, and of course that evidence comes in endless forms. But the other thing I've always looked at and tried to guard against is I always try to figure that I'm training my replacement. And those folks out there that we either spend enough time with or not enough, there are eyes and ears. And many times our reputation is no better than what they bring back to us, having been trained under our hands. So any comments on rural versus urban somewhat approach when you deal with different folks? I've had folks that come from the city and all of a sudden they cannot handle the out of town up into the mountain terrain. I've had people just quit on us 1 or 2 days after being out in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. The first thing I would remind them is that it's a lot easier to go to the bathroom when you're out in the country. But besides that, we don't have mountains here in this part of the country. We do have some pretty wicked sand dunes along the lakeshore, but so I don't know that I have a lot of experience when it comes to these different kind of like physical terrains. I mean, I will know, or I mean, I do know that you hear comments like we have a decent number of steel mills along the lakeshore in our area. You hear comments about people that are accustomed to working in certain environments, or the millwrights, the guys that survey in the mills. It's often said they make horrible topographers because the mindset is different. They're working to accomplish just a different goal with what they're doing in that state. So, I mean, yes, you have that. People are not everybody is suited for everything. You know, you have, I'm assuming you'll have people that will love to work and would much prefer to work in the country. And then you'll have other people that prefer to work in the city. So I honestly, I can't say that I have a lot of experience with that aspect of it, but I do appreciate your comment, Steve, about your mindset is that you're training your replacement, because I think that's a very good mindset. I think it's a special mindset. And I hear a lot of kind of disharmony between, you know, because you have people that are in the office usually, and they're looking at this stuff, and then they're frustrated because they're not getting what they need from the field. And the field is like, why are they asking us to do these things that don't make sense to us? So again, in my mind, that just falls under that bigger core idea of communication. You just have, you've got to invest your time, and whatever that means for your organization or whatever you're trying to do, but there's no sidestepping. I think that you're going to have to invest time and communication and getting on the same page as much as you can. And that's an investment, I think, any way you cut it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shane, Rob McMillan again. You started off talking about the communication, and you're wrapping up there with it. And really, in order to bring somebody along quickly, I think that the communication is key, and identifying the building blocks and giving them just tasks that build upon the previous task and keep moving up in complexity. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's never, in my experience, you know, that's never quite the same for everybody. We do have kind of these methods that we will generally kind of follow this progression because it makes the most sense for most people, but we never leave people hanging out there. We're never asking people to do something that they've never done before. And I'm a big fan of the more people you can have on a crew, the better, especially for some task, to help each other out, to look out for each other, to learn from each other, and things like that. But basically, it comes up to you as either a trainer or you as the trainee. You know, everybody has their responsibilities and has to engage, you know, to make it all work and open up about it. So.
Yeah, all really good points. There's a few good points in the chat as well, if you guys are following that. George, big differences being an expert in something and being able to teach it, two very different skills. So good point. And Kent, I think it's a new person knows what their expectations are close to the start of employment or at the day of at hand, they will know that they are meeting the mentor's training requirements. They could be grown into steps according to their capability and understanding. So that's a great point, Kent. It's good stuff. Rodney, same thing. Our firm, we speak a lot about expectations and emphasize on communication above all things and try to take advantage of the learned opportunities. So that's good stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm feeling pretty satisfied here. I thank everybody for their time and for their comments, and express my personal thanks for what you guys are doing here and for the work that everybody's doing out there. I think no matter who you are or where you're at and what you're doing, we just encourage you to, you know, keep up the good work. And I thank everybody personally for their time.
Yeah. Thanks for being on. Anybody got any more questions they got for Shane? Looks like shit. Steve's typing.
He typed Shane.
Yeah.
And then you hit the enter button that sends it on up.
That's right.
You know, I think we've got a lot of leaders on this platform, and a lot of experienced people. Well, we got some up and coming people as well. And I think the key to what we're doing here is that we're building the next group of trainers, of mentors, of leaders. And I think that's what I'm the most excited about this whole thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep. That's cool. Thanks, Rob.
Shane, what are you doing with 7 inches of snow?
Not much. Looking at it mostly. No, so I've been helping out with like legal descriptions and right of way engineering and some things like that. I've been fortunate enough to have that. So, but no, outdoors, no, not much.
You had jumped on late, but we were talking about the weather earlier, and I had played golf earlier today because it was like 62 degrees and beautiful.
I don't even think you could find a green or orange fluorescent golf ball up this way.
Right, exactly.
No.
Trent, that sounds like it was warmer golfing back home than it was here in Florida.
It was, yeah. We had a
It was
couple
so
of
cold last week for
yeah,
us.
crazy.
Good.
So,
I know, actually, Shane, I appreciate and like to thank you for your training. So I am the training coordinator at my company. So I hop on and I'm soaking all of this in because I'm in charge of training the new generation at my company and in our area. And I'm green. I've only been in surveying since last summer. But I know more than some of the new guys because I go to all the classes. I know just enough.
Yeah.
But the safety is so important, and we have to be real careful when we have new people start on understanding whether they have zero experience or if they have some. We have a couple of different crew chiefs that we trust to teach, that have patience, and that we know they will keep their safety in check because new people have no idea what danger they're actually in. I don't think I did either until I started attending more and more of these trainings.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you touching on that. And then as far as communication goes, we have a management program we all use. And as soon as they come in and they get their shirts and their mask and their PPE from me in the field ops, I tell them to pull out their phone and see if they can open this and open this and open this. I'm like, this is how we're going to be communicating with you. I need to know that you can open your email because there's 100 of you.
Right.
So yeah, so that's also very important to us. So
Thank-
so thank you.
I think
Thank you, Kat.
the good part you hit on that one, Kat, was definitely putting the newbies with the person who's going to actually train them, right? And not just throw
You
them with
have
somebody who's going to kick him down the road type of thing. So yeah,
The hard part is taking some of the, and then we do put them on a 3-man crew for those couple of days before we move them around. We run almost all 2-man crews, some 1, and some of the departments, but yeah, you got to put it with the right person. And the hard part is breaking up those crews. They hate that, those crew chiefs using their favorite eye, man. They got to give
Oh
them.
man.
So that is tough.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
my decision.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your comments. And there is a lot of tools, we didn't talk about it, but there is a lot of tools, especially that have kind of come out, like Zoom as an example, that more people are using that just were not using it a year ago or whatever. And we have found a lot of tools within this world for recording like this video we're doing now, but doing it on a much smaller level. So I would say if you have your crews and you're wanting to reinforce messages about whatever it is in your procedure that needs to be addressed, because there's always something that needs to be said, even short videos just within your department that's available on whatever kind of platform you're using is a good way to touch everybody, but not be there. If you have to touch 100 people or 50 people, but don't have the time to get everybody together, or even nobody wants to do that now in a lot of cases, having some little video information for them can be a nice way to reinforce the things that you want to have accomplished.
I'd like to add that 3 of our staff members are on, so my all staff company emails are working. So I can't wait to give them high fives tomorrow morning.
That's awesome.
There you go, Kat.
That's awesome.
Well, I would like to comment that, sometimes I've found that it's much easier to train newbies than it is to train people with experience, because it's harder to break those old bad habits than it is to teach them new good ones.